Tonight, we now continue our week-long look at the plight of America's newspapers in a special series that we are calling Stop the Presses. Many papers across the country either shutting down or going online only, or even moving into bankruptcy. Among them, both major newspapers in Philadelphia, the nation's 6th largest city. So how did all this happen, and what does it mean for the people who live there? Andrew Whitman, he has been digging for those answers, and he's just back from brotherly love.
Well, thank you very much, Rich. Philadelphia's bankruptcy blues are a complicated lesson in economics and financing, but it's also a lesson in news coverage and doing more essential reporting with fewer resources, which, while less than appealing prospect on a host of levels, is still better for the city and its residents than having Philadelphia stop the presses.
It is a Philadelphia institution. The first edition of the then Pennsylvania Inquirer rolled off the presses in 1829. Making it the 3rd oldest daily newspaper in the United States, which is why so many people were shocked to see the Inquirer in the headlines recently, not just reporting them. On February 21st, Philadelphia Media Holdings, which owns the Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News, announced the company was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The decision reflects a financial standing that will leave some scratching their heads that the papers, while in bankruptcy, are both still profitable.
The operational side of the company, as you said, is making money, and last year made $36 million. The year before made $50-some million.
Yet the company remains deeply in debt. The reason stems from the sale of the papers back in 2006. McClatchy, one of the biggest newspaper companies in the U.S., sold the Inquirer, the Daily News, and Philly.com to local owners for $562 million. But given the state of the economy and the newspaper industry, the papers are worth far less today, and those profits can't cover the loans. So the company is using bankruptcy to essentially refinance. And yes, cuts will have to be made, though management hopes not to its reporting staff.
We need to really spend money on the product, and that great journalism, and under the editors that we have, the papers have gotten better, we think, in the last 2 years. Our surveys tell us that from readers, that they like it better. So that really is kind of the last area that we would look to.
When I was here from, in the 70s, 80s, and to the mid-90s, we had 680 newsroom employees. When I came back, we were down to about 330 editorial employees. Still quite a robust editorial staff, the biggest in the region by far, but really only a shadow of what the paper once was.
Vernon Loeb is an assistant managing editor for the Inquirer. He's seen the impact those staff cuts have brought, even if his readers do not.
We're not as deep and we're not as broad as we used to be. I think we still are very good at hitting breaking news really hard and doing selected projects. But we're able to do in-depth reporting less frequently than we once did. We're able to do fewer projects than we once were able to. And we're able to do them for, a shorter amount of time often.
They are projects that can change the face of a city and keep officials in check. Take the conviction of Vincent Fumo, a former state senator convicted last week on 137 counts of corruption, conspiracy, and fraud. The Inquirer broke the story that launched the federal investigation.
It's classic investigative reporting. It begins with a reporter assigned to cover South Philadelphia.
That reporter spotted an unusual sign on Election Day and did what reporters do. The Inquirer's digging uncovered illegal cash payments and improper property deals.
But for, these two really dogged reporters asking, really interesting questions and refusing to be, deterred, but for that, there is no Fumo case. And I think that's really a great example of investigative reporting at its best. Investigative reporting takes two things, basically. It takes time and it takes money. And while we're, we almost alone in the region now have the time and the money still to do serious investigative reporting, we don't do as much as we used to. And as we contract, it really compromises our ability to do really deep accountability reporting, which is vital to the region.
Other cuts over the years have meant other losses to the region. The paper used to print insert sections focused on specific neighborhoods.
Back when they started, these insert sections had 15 to 20 reporters each. They covered local governments, school districts in incredible depth. All of that reporting is now gone. I don't know where people get that news from anymore.
There are also fewer reporters working the police beat, healthcare issues, education, and working City Hall, making those in charge less accountable to the people, though it could be worse.
I do believe Were there no Philadelphia Inquirer and the City Council of Philadelphia was meeting and there was no one there to cover it, I think people would start to realize, oh my God, we have no idea what's happening in the city.
Management insists both the Inquirer and Daily News will survive in Philadelphia, and again, they say it can be done without any more newsroom cuts. In the city where our nation was born, a quote from a founding father has resonated and even become something of a prayer.
I'd rather be in a country with newspapers and no government than a country with a government and no newspapers. And I'm with Jefferson, and I'm with the people who dreamed up the First Amendment. Yeah, I think newspapers are way too important to fail.
Both Philadelphia papers have seen their circulation numbers drop by more than 10% in the past year and a half, and that number doesn't reflect any added drop since the recession really hit home last fall. But more people are reading their reports than ever before, thanks to an even larger readership increase on Philly.com. Rich?
And we'll get into throughout the week. That's great online, but if they're not making any money, it's translated to the bottom line. But I know they say, all right, you know what, we had to make these painful cuts, but no more. I've heard that in many other papers, Andrew, and so have you. Are they really confident that the worst is really behind them, or is this like a slow drip? Maybe it'll be down to one paper in Philadelphia, and then who knows after that?
They look at the debt payments that they have to make, and they say if they can get that readjusted, then they look at their profits, $30 million last year, $50+ million the year before, and they say we've got enough to make it through. They're also looking to increase the publications that they do in their printing press, looking for other revenue sources as well. They've also combined, in a sense, the Daily News and the Inquirer. The Daily News is now a subsidiary to try to save cost on things like AP wires and other things that the papers can share.
For folks who don't grasp it, I mean, that paper, it must be jarring to those people who remember it, let alone work there for 30 years, like Loeb that you spoke to. I mean, it's a ghost town in certain sections. The paper itself, a fraction of what it was. Are they dispirited by this, or do they just accept this as the reality?
They're actually not dispirited at all. The number of people that I talk to, they're hoping that they can find their way. And they think there's enough there to do it. They really do. They say that spirit of journalism isn't going anywhere.